There's no one left who remembers what it was like when humanity joined our ranks. There are videos and reports and textbooks on it, of course, but there's no one left who was there. And so we forgot. We watched as humanity grew old and peaceful, settling into a comfortable place of power and influence among the great races of the Union, and so we grew resentful. What had they done to deserve their status? What had they done to earn their place? How had this upstart race become so widespread in our galaxy? We were the ones who built this community. We were the ones who had created the Union. Our races had been out here long before them. Our people had greater lifespans, learned more, deserved more, and so we struck first. We prepared in secret, gathered our forces, conspired with allies, and attacked this old, feeble humanity. How we pitied and hated them. Such a young race, but in our eyes already seemingly so old and withered, pathetic. It was time to put the old man down. We struck the settlements and colonies bordering our territories, burning out this human infestation from our planets, and God's how we reveled in the fear and destruction we spread. As we flew back to our home worlds, anticipating the response of outrage and declaration of war, so we could have a proper conflict, no, a proper beating. If attacking them was our greatest error, then waiting for their response was the second worst thing we could have done. Because they didn't reply, they didn't send any messages, they didn't declare war, they simply acted. Within a week, countless war vessels hovered over our worlds. There were older models among the ranks, some even that appeared in the textbooks we had so easily glossed over when thinking about how undeserving humanity was, but most were brand new, top of the line, and armed to the teeth with the latest weapons. There were energy readings we couldn't even understand, let alone analyze, but instead of attacking, they just sat there silently. And oddly, the older models seemed to have been placed in front. As a first line of defense, they ignored all attempts to make contact and aimed every single gun they had at any vessel that got too close. In the face of overwhelming force, we could do nothing, and we felt ashamed, not because we thought we were in the wrong, but because we had underestimated them. We thought that they had stopped their pursuit of war during these centuries of peace, but clearly we were mistaken. But if they were just going to sit and posture, then we would have more than enough time to muster the might of our allied forces. After all, if they truly wanted this fight, they would have started firing by now, and they certainly wouldn't have these antique ships in their front lines. If they had to bring these relics out of retirement, this must be the extent of their resources. And while we might be overwhelmed in the beginning, we had more force to bring to bear. In a drawn-out conflict, but something nagged at us about those old ships. Something seemed familiar. They reminded us of something, but we couldn't quite put our fingers on it. They felt like copies. Copies of something we used to know, and imperfect ones at that. Something just different enough for us to be unable to grasp the connection, and leave us increasingly unsettled. Finally, we turned our attention back to the reports, the videos, the textbooks, anything we could to try and finally scratch this seemingly insignificant but inexplicably persistent itch, and that's where we found it. Not the ships, but the Silaxians were a race that had grown and flourished with us. In the early days of the Union, before the subjugation of Unascended wasn't yet seen as uncivilized or improper, and before the Union became a nurturing community rather than a gathering of conquerors, at no point in time were we more suited for war. At no point since did we revel in it so. None of us more than but the Silaxians had a moniker these days. In fact, they'd had it for centuries now. It was just that they were so far removed from our thoughts that it slipped through our collective memory. As the humans say, out of sight, out of mind. The lost civilization